What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Baku, aka UFC Fight Night, Rafael Fiziev versus Manuel Torres. And this is going to be my full card breakdown and predictions. I'm really looking forward to this fight card, man. We have some very, very fun stylistic matchups on here, but it is all about this main event. Rafael Fiziev, one of the most technical Muay Thai style of strikers that we have ever seen in MMA, who's 1-4 in his last 5. Now, granted, he's been in there with some of the best lightweights that the division has to offer, and he's looking to get back in the win column, but he has to get through a very devastating, ferocious finisher and Manuel Torres, who's looking to go out here and get the biggest win of his entire career. The UFC has been absolutely cooking with these cards. They've been cooking with these matchups, and especially with these main events. This is a banger of a main event. Cannot wait to break it down. And then in the co-main, we got Michel Pereira, a very explosive striker, taking on the always fun to watch and dynamic Shara Bullet Magomedov. That'll be a fun one, right? Nazim Sadykhov versus Mateos Camilo. Almabayev versus Charles Johnson. We got some great matchups on this card, man. So I'm excited to break this one down. And let's rock and roll right into this thing, right? Our first fight of the night. We got Tahir Abdullayev versus Jefferson Nascimento. So a tricky fight to pick, I think, right off the rip, because we got two guys that have nice-looking records that are relatively unproven, at least at a very high level, right? When you turn on the tape and you look at Tahir, I mean, it's pretty obvious what this guy brings to the table, right? 5'8", he's a big, solid dude, right? Hence the nickname Tank, right? I feel like that's pretty fitting when you watch this guy fight. He's just kind of a bulldozer out there. He'll move forward. He's got big power in everything he does. Not a lot of, fundamental technical setups, at least when it comes to the striking that at least I've seen, right? A lot of it is just kind of looking to play bully ball, back you down in the paint, try to kind of throw up those little turnaround hooks and bully you in and then try to dunk over your head. That's what Abdullayev likes to do with his style. Likes to push the pace, kind of impose his physicality on you, and that's what we've seen, right? In his past 5 fights, he lost. It was almost 2 years ago, but been very, very active, right? Finishing guys on the ground, has a very solid submission game, just very dangerous all around. But some of the opposition that he's been in there with, I kind of question the level of competition that he's been fighting. But I always like to say this. I don't necessarily judge how good a fighter is or is not, because a lot of the times on the regional scene, you just kind of fight who you can. But a lot of experience coming into this, right? In Azerbaijan, this is a big opportunity for him. And this kind of feels like a Dana White Contender Series type of fight, where I think, both of these guys are going to come in hungry with a point to prove. I think Tahir is going to be the more physical fighter. He's got a ton of power, very explosive, has a good ground game. I do worry a little bit about the cardio in a potential matchup here against Jefferson Nascimento, who is a guy that does have some experience at 170 pounds, right? But it was also fighting at 155, to where him coming up to welterweight, I think he's going to have a little bit of a speed advantage, right? I think he's going to have also a technicality advantage. When I watch Jefferson fight, to me, he's the more technical striker. Picks his shots well. He's a high-level thinker on the feet. He's setting things up, flicking the jab out there, walking you into the left hook. Got a nice uppercut that comes right up the middle, to where if Tahir is looking to level change, I could absolutely see Nascimento looking to just kind of tag him with the uppercut on the way in. So for me, I feel like Tahir is, the guy that is maybe more dangerous in terms of the overall power and kind of how he moves forward and has the grappling threat to go along with it. But I'm more impressed with the skill that I see from Jefferson Nascimento, and I like that he's coming over from LFA. I like a lot of these prospects that come over from LFA, because to me, that's a very proven promotion to where you fight a lot of sound, fundamental competition. Just fought almost 3 weeks ago. I like that he's been active. He's been in there getting the reps in. I think that Jefferson Nascimento is going to be able to get the job done here in a tough one against Tahir Abdullayev. But I could see this going either way, because again, both guys unproven at the UFC level. It's not like we've seen them on Tough or DWCS or anything like that. So a lot of question marks to me coming in, but I'm going to go with the more technical striker in Jefferson Nascimento here. And I think if the fight hits the floor, I do think that probably favors Tahir. But I feel like Nascimento can scramble, work back to his feet. I think he's more technical, and I think that he can make Abdullayev pay with, him trying to just kind of play that bully ball game. I think Jefferson has enough power, and I think his technique is better on the feet to where he can kind of pick apart Tahir and sharpshoot him in the striking department. So wouldn't be surprised if Tahir hurts him early, looks to wrestle him, take him down, beat him up on the ground. He's got good ground and pound and good submissions, but I think Nascimento is the more technical overall fighter, and I think he'll come in with a good game plan to get this one done. Stick and move, kind of not just allow Tahir to back him up the whole time. Maybe, Tahir comes out hard on the gas in the first round. I feel like we'll start to see him slow down in the second and third round, and that's where Nascimento can start to take over. I'll say 29-28, Jefferson winning rounds 2 and 3 after a dominant first round by Tahir. Give me Nascimento here. I like the technique. Next, moving on up, we got one of my favorite fights on the entire card. Two really good bantamweight prospects in Bekzat Almakhan versus Jean Matsumoto. Now, this is a fight that I've went back and forth on because I think that there are two really good cases to how you could see either guy winning this fight. And to me, the story with Jean Matsumoto is I have no doubt that this guy is a UFC caliber fighter. I mean, he's been in there with some solid opposition since he's came into the UFC, right? Had that nice submission win 2 years ago against Dan Argueta, right? Beat Brad Katona by decision, had a very close fight with Rob Font that I thought could have went either way. Beat Miles Johns by split decision, and most recently, 4 months ago, a competitive one with the undefeated Farid Basharat. So he's been in there with really good competition, and the fights that he's losing, he's barely losing. So the problem with Matsumoto is he's got good Muay Thai on the feet, right? Good grappling overall. Not that that's the problem. The problem is he doesn't always do enough to separate himself against fighters that can provide a dangerous threat back to him. Now, I know that Basharat's not the most dangerous guy. I know Font not necessarily the most dangerous guy, but he's got good hands. Right, and we see that sometimes Matsumoto cannot do enough to separate himself, not inflict enough damage, not rack up enough control time to really convince the judges that he got the job done. And I think that that's an important factor coming into this fight because Bekzat Almakhan, to me, I have no doubt that he hits way harder than Matsumoto, and he is by far the more explosive fighter here, without question. And I've been saying before that I think Bekzat has some of the most power in all of the bantamweight division. I think that this guy has the skills to be a top-flight bantamweight, but the problem has been for Bekzat, right, on very short notice, steps in against Umar Nurmagomedov. What a debut that is, right? Dropped Umar, landed a massive right hand over the top, was able to hurt him bad, but it was ultimately the high-level grappling of Umar that was able to get the job done. Okay, no harm, no foul. Then comes back and puts out Brad Katona bad, man. Brad Katona is known for being a super, durable fighter throughout his career, and Bekzat didn't care. Absolutely put the work on him, put the heat on him, and got him out of there, right? And he's coming off of a loss 6 months ago to Alexandre Topuria, but I've been saying, man, Alexandre, he's an elite bantamweight. He's absolutely, it wouldn't be surprised if he's the champion at some point in this weight class. For sure going to be a top 5 guy. So the guys that Bekzat has lost to are, in my opinion, top 5 caliber bantamweights in this weight class. So the way that I see this fight playing out, Matsumoto, to me, does a little bit better of a job of blending the techniques, right? He's got good Muay Thai. The hands are okay. Good elbows and knees in close. A really good low kick, which I think is going to be a big weapon for him in this fight, considering that Bekzat is very bladed and kind of in that longer, boxing-like stance to where he can then load up and create all that power. But that does leave him vulnerable to low kicks. And I think Matsumoto is going to look to attack the lead leg, walk forward, and pressure Almakhan because Matsumoto has very good cardio for all 15 minutes. To where we see Bekzat, that tends to be one of the Achilles heels in his game, is the fact that he's so explosive, and what usually comes with that is a guy that starts to slow down after the first round and a half. So I anticipate that Almakhan, if he doesn't get the KO, is going to slow down because I think Matsumoto will pressure. He'll get banged up early. He'll start to kind of snowball as the fight plays out. But I just feel like it's going to be too late by that point in time. We've seen Matsumoto get banged up. He wears damage. He can get cut open pretty easy. I think Bekzat Almakhan, if you watch this dude before the UFC, and even in this fight against Topuria, he was landing some huge shots early. And Topuria's got elite boxing. Alexandre does, absolutely, just like Ilya. Elite boxing, a very high-level ground game. Umar and Alexandre, I think, are light years ahead of a guy like Jean Matsumoto. I think Matsumoto is very good, but I don't think he has that X-factor skill set that can trouble Bekzat. And if you don't have that, and you're relying on durability, forward pressure, kind of, not the most power as you're moving forward, throwing these pitter-patter shots, Matsumoto, for every 3-4 shots he lands, all it takes is one big one from Almakhan to either knock him out or just absolutely damage him up and sway the judges based on damage. So I'm going to take Bekzat Almakhan to win this fight, 29-28 on the cards here. And I think it's going to come down to the damage that Bekzat is going to cause, because one of the things about Matsumoto, doesn't move his head very well, right? And a lot of guys that have that Muay Thai style of striking, the head movement tends to lack, and the boxing defense tends to lack. And I think that he's going to pay for that in this fight. We saw Font getting the jab going. We saw him landing some good shots. And then, I think Matsumoto in the grappling maybe has an edge, right? I think Bekzat has good grappling as well, to where he could even mix in some takedowns. Bekzat can scramble really well. Even if Matsumoto takes him down and mixes in the wrestling, I don't know that it's good enough to keep Almakhan on his back unless Bekzat is dog tired, which I think in the third round he probably will if, we go the distance here, which that's what I think happens. I would not be surprised whatsoever, though, if Bekzat comes out with a point to prove in Azerbaijan, excited for this opportunity, and he lands a massive shot on Matsumoto early. That puts him away. But I think Matsumoto's dog tough. He's very, very experienced at this point for a guy that's 26, tons of fights, a lot of UFC competition as well, like being in the UFC for a while. So I think he'll weather an early storm, battle back into the fight late, but it'll be too late on the cards, as Almakhan will win the first and second based on damage. Almakhan, to me, one of the most ferocious strikers, especially in round number 1. And we've seen the cardio does dwindle, but he can still give you a very hard second round as well. So give me Almakhan 29-28, banking the first 2 on the scorecards against a very game Jean Matsumoto. But if Matsumoto can get an early start and avoid the big power and mix in some takedowns to nullify the explosiveness of Almakhan, I could absolutely see Jean getting this one done. But I'm going to side with the damage that I think Bekzat is going to cause in this fight. Next, we got Daniil Donchenko versus Theodore Berggren. Theo. Yeah. I mean, I think that Theo is, I think he's a solid fighter from what I've seen, right? Can switch it up on the feet with the stances, predominantly a southpaw, rips good kicks to the body. He's very athletic and really has a pretty well-rounded skill set, to be fair, right? We've seen he's got good ground and pound, did get submitted a year and a half ago, right? And then did lose by a decision, but he's a solid opponent. Good kicks, fast hands, a solid ground game. I want to give him credit. I think that he's a good fighter, but the problem is, man, in a debut against Daniil Donchenko, who I think is one of the best up-and-coming fighters in the UFC all across the board, like, you're just asking for a world of problems. And dare I say, Donchenko might be one of the best fighters that we've ever seen, or not ever, well, one of the best fighters we've seen come off of Tough, at least recently. And I know that Tough, to a degree, has lost a lot of its kind of, value in a sense, as the fighters that are coming off of there. It's not like we're seeing all these fighters having all this success in the UFC. A lot of it is the guys coming off of DWCS. But I think Daniil is one of the most impressive fighters that we've seen come through the show. Actually, I will go that far. Yeah, ever. I'll stand on that. Yeah, ever. I think Donchenko is one of the most skilled fighters we've seen come through Tough. I believe that, man. His Muay Thai is super high level. Reminds me a lot of Rafael Fiziev to a degree, right? Can switch up the stances, nasty kicks and elbows and knees and close. But what he does a great job of is, a lot of Muay Thai guys that come over to MMA, they have kind of a hard time of making the Muay Thai a little bit bouncier and adapting it to, the MMA style of games, where you see a lot of guys are kind of flat-footed. They just kind of walk forward. There's not a lot of movement. Donchenko has adapted that Thai style very, very well to MMA, like Fiziev. He's very explosive, in and out, good lateral movement, very good footwork, and he can mix up the shots very, very well. So as solid of a young fighter that I think Theo is, man, I think he's absolutely getting smoked in this fight. And I think Daniil Donchenko is going to put him away in the very first round. And look, I picked Daniil in the debut, against Alex Morono. And, I thought he was going to get him out of there. Watching that fight back, I have no idea how Morono survived. I have no idea how he made it the distance, right? He took a beating in that fight. But to be fair, Morono's dog tough, a true veteran that I don't think he's in the UFC anymore, but a veteran that had been around for a long time. So he knows how to survive. He knows how to kind of dog things out, and when he gets in these bad positions, find a way to where I just don't think that Theo has that type of experience. And Daniil is by far the best fighter that Berggren has fought, man. I mean, not only does Donchenko have good takedown defense as well, which we saw against Rodrigo Cezinado, who has good grappling in his own right on, the finals of Tough. I mean, when you watch Daniil on the show, man, I knew as soon as they showed his training footage on Tough and we watched him fight for the first time, I'm like, this dude's got the it factor. And I believe that. And I don't think Theo is going to have the poise or the veteran-like experience to be able to survive, the storm that Donchenko is going to bring. I believe Daniil is one of the brightest prospects in all of the UFC. He's got nasty hands, rips combos to the body really well. His kicking game is nasty, throws to the legs, to the body, upstairs. There is so much to worry about when you're fighting Donchenko. And if things aren't going well for Theo on the feet, I don't think his ground game is good enough to be able to get Donchenko down and at least hold him down. So I think Daniil goes out there and puts the heat on him right away and is able to overwhelm a young, talented Berggren who's, getting a big opportunity. But Daniil, a guy that's almost 25, he's still very young as well. I think Donchenko's going to cook Theo in this fight and make this one look pretty easy. Happy for Theo to get the opportunity. Very, very tough ask in your first ever UFC fight against just a sensational talent in Daniil Donchenko. I think it's going to bust him up bad with the kicks. Theo's going to kind of throw a kick, to the body. Donchenko can catch it and then counter with his hands. I think Donchenko is going to put on a showcase here and get Theo out of there in the very first round. Next up, we got Con Ofli versus Javier Reyes. Man, I feel like Con Ofli is a better fighter than Javier Reyes. That's my assessment when I think about this fight coming in. But the problem is, I think Javier Reyes' physicality is enough to basically kind of overwhelm Ofli and negate some of maybe the technicality advantages that I think Ofli has over Reyes. That's how I see this fight. I wanted to pick Con Ofli to win this fight, and I think that he's very live to do so. But I have to favor Javier Reyes in this fight, man. And I think that he gets it done on the cards. But I could see a scenario to where he's able to clip Con Ofli, follow him up to the ground, maybe lock in some sort of submission or beat him up with some ground and pound to where the ref has to step in. But I'm going to go Javier Reyes here. But I'm not very confident here because Con Ofli's one of these guys to where he did not win this last fight, in my opinion. I have no idea how the judges gave him this call. I thought Yijia beat the brakes off of Ofli for the majority of that fight. I thought that this was a miracle that Ofli got the decision here. I thought it was a pretty clear victory for Yijia, and I think that Yijia is a very technical striker, even though he's basically a grappler pretty much. He's still got good striking, right? We've seen that Ofli's very tough. He's got some good experience, right? Myron Santos is a very good prospect with nasty striking, right? Muhammad Naimov, very technical as well. Coming off of a submission win over Ricardo Ramos. Like, we've seen some good things from Con Ofli, right? Got that, lower center of gravity. He's going to be at a pretty solid reach disadvantage here, but Reyes isn't a guy that really utilizes his reach well. He's not like a super technical, going to probe you with the jab from range, walking you into all these traps. He's just a durable dog that just knows how to just brawl and dog it out, man. Like that's how I would describe his style, right? And yeah, I think he got knocked out by Larian Douglas, who's a devastating hitter, right? We're seeing how good he is, right? So that's not a bad loss. But the guys that really trouble Reyes are guys that just have power and can out-technique him, right? But if you can't do so and you let Reyes land a big shot to rock you, or you let him get onto your back and get into these positions, we saw what he was able to do on WCS, and what he did against De Andrade was impressive. But I mean, Douglas is, what is he, 50? Right? I mean, he looks old as can be. I mean, to be fair, he had Reyes in a ton of trouble early. But that's the thing about Reyes, man. He's a big guy for the weight class. I know that they're the same height at 5'7". He's got a long reach for this division. He's just kind of awkward in there. And sometimes when you're the more crafty, technical guy like Ofli, a dude that's just kind of a weird, wild card, unpredictable kind of fighter like a Reyes, that sometimes can give a very technical guy some issues. So I think that Ofli is good. I think he's very, very live to get this one done. He's got some power in his hands. He's got a very good ground game as well. I just think it's going to be one of those things where Ofli hurts him early, and then Reyes walks him into some shots, is able to kind of out-damage him on the feet, maybe have some control time on the deck. I see this being a split decision that goes in the direction of Javier Mendez, 29-28. I think it's going to be a close one, but Ofli, to me, I don't know, man. I didn't think he won this fight. But either way, he's still good. Still a good fighter. Got a good ground game. But I think Reyes can find a way to make it funky, make it weird, and just kind of out-volume and out-damage Ofli to get this one done. Next, we got Nursultan Ruziboev, a.k.a. Lil Ruzi Vert, versus Andre Pulyaev. I think that Nursultan Ruziboev is just better than Andre Pulyaev everywhere. Like that's kind of my assessment of this fight. Now, to be fair, I feel like Andre Pulyaev was a guy that was kind of being, I don't want to say overlooked, but maybe not given the credit that he deserves in terms of his skill set, right? Had a decent performance on DWCS where he was able to outscore and pick and poke at Liam Anderson to get the job done right before the UFC. If you go and watch a lot of this guy's fights, excellent, very, very technical striking. Got a solid frame for the weight class, 6'4", 78.5-inch reach. Fights behind good, long, straight boxing combos. He's got good low kicks. Really good shot selection. Can switch it up on the feet. Good movement. Can walk you into a lot of shots. And really, this last fight against Gatia, I mean, almost got knocked out quite a few times, but he put on an impressive showing because everyone else gets smoked by Atiba. So it was like, wow, this guy went the distance. He was able to have a lot of success as the fight started to play out. So respect to Andre Pulyaev, right? And he was able to stop Nick Klein, which is a very impressive performance. And again, Nick Klein, a grappler, doesn't really have much to offer on the feet and does slow down if he can't get you out of there early. Pulyaev's one of these guys that can just kind of craft and, be very crafty and very savvy in there and kind of dial up these crafty performances to where I very much could see him doing something like that in this fight. But I just feel like he's outmatched in terms of the skills, man. Like Nursultan Ruziboev, I mean, Ruzi's got a ton of experience, man. I mean, 36, 9-2, that's a lot of fights. And he's only 32, almost 33 years of age, tons of experience, right? A nasty, knockout over Bruno Ferreira, which is aged really well because Bruno Ferreira is really good, right? Stopped Cedric Dumas, not the greatest win, but still. And then down at 170 pounds, I didn't like Ruziboev at 170 whatsoever. I feel like he was really compromising himself, draining the gas tank, draining the explosiveness, and I feel like we got a shell of Nursultan at 170. And I mean, the fact that Buckley was taking him down, not particularly the best of looks, in my opinion. But I feel like a lot of that had to do with the weight cut. Fair play to Buckley, but Ruziboev, to me, is a completely different fighter at 185, right? Put the work on Moicanico, got him out of there early, outscored Dustin Stoltzfus, was able to get the job done. I think Nursultan has a grappling advantage. I think maybe at a little bit of an output disadvantage compared to Pulyaev, but I think that Nursultan has more devastating power in this matchup. So I'm going to lean in the direction of Nursultan to get this one done by a decision. But I very much could see, Nursultan, especially in the first round, that straight right hand down the pipe, that good, left hook around the guard. I could absolutely see him catching Pulyaev early because we've seen that you can bully Andre, right? And that's kind of one of the, Achilles heels of Pulyev's game is he just kind of lets people back him up and bully him around, especially early in the fight, to where I don't think Ruzi's going to get tired. I think that Ruziboev's got good kicks as well. He's got the grappling in his back pocket. I think he's able to outdamage Pulyaev, outstrike him in the first round, mix in the takedowns in rounds 2 and 3, secure some control time, and maybe even find a submission over Andre. I think that any outcome is possible here for Ruziboev, but after what I just saw from Pulyaev against Gatia, I'm going to put some respect on his name and say that he goes distance here in a competitive but clear victory for Nursultan Ruziboev. I think he gets it done on the cards. I like Lil Ruzi Vert, man. He's got some swag, man, and he's got some danger factor to him. All right, next we got Abdulrahman Yakhyaev versus Julius Walker. Goom. The cannon will be sounding for Julius Walker as he is going down in this fight. And Abdulrahman Yakhyaev is not only one of the best prospects in the light heavyweight division, but one of the most impressive prospects on the rise in the UFC because this guy is allergic to boring fights. Devastating knockout power on the feet, very good output, and a very, very high-level ground game. The hardest part about picking Abdul's fights since he's gotten to the UFC throughout his career, we've been picking him every time. The hardest part is picking how he wins because he is so well-rounded that he absolutely can start you and put you away with one shot and follow it up with ground and pound and get you out of there. Or he could just take you down and submit you or rock you really bad on the feet and then just latch up a sub. So picking the way that Yakhyaev is going to win is rather difficult. But I have a lot of confidence that he is going to go in here and just kind of floor Julius Walker early in this fight. I mean, what he did to Lorenz on the Contender Series was absolutely devastating, right? Goes out there, runs over Rafael Fiziev, and then is able to submit him, right? Battled a little bit of adversity early on, right? Ribeiro, a very explosive guy, especially early, much more dangerous of a striker and overall fighter, in my opinion, than a guy like Julius Walker, right? So battled a little bit of adversity and then was able to kind of, dog through it, hurt him, get him down, and ultimately get to the back and lock in a rear naked choke. I just don't know how Julius Walker wins this fight, man. I know that he came into the UFC, had a close fight, which in hindsight, how in the world did he have a close fight with Menefield? I still don't know. I think if you run it back, Menefield probably knocks him out. But what we've seen from Walker is he's, got an athletic background. I think he was a basketball player or something. So, you see that he's athletic, right? And he's kind of, newer in the MMA game, I should say. Right? His striking is just not good. He kind of pushes punches. He's just kind of stiff and just kind of muscles and rock'em sock'em robot shots out there to where they don't have a lot of power on him. His ground game is decent, but a lot of it is just a sloppy clinch style of fight that Walker brings to the table. And of course, a weird style could potentially present an odd threat for a technical guy like Abdul Rahman. But this fight against Rafael Fiziev, I mean, you saw what Abdul Rahman did, ran through him. And I know MMA math for you, but man, Julius Walker was kind of going life and death with this guy, right? And then most recently, we picked Dustin Jacoby to knock him out. And that was just a horrible matchup for Julius Walker because Jacoby's a very technical and crafty striker, right? With a Glory kickboxing background. I just don't know how Walker wins this fight. I think he's got to press the action, make it dirty, push Yakhyaev up against the fence, try to drag him out, hope Yakhyaev gets tired and the gas tank fades in the later rounds or something to pull this one off. That would probably be the most surprising thing to me on this card if Walker somehow pulls this thing off. So, but it ain't happening, man. Abdul Rahman, he is absolutely going to put away Julius Walker in this fight, and I think he's going to end up submitting him in the very first round. It's going to be a finish within the first two. I think it happens in the first. It's either a knockout or submission. I think he rocks Walker badly on the feet, puts him on his back, club and sub, and Yakhyaev gets to the back of Julius Walker and submits him. I know Walker's got a competent ground game, but I don't think he's been in there with someone as complete and as explosive as Abdul Rahman Yakhyaev, especially early in the fight, like Abdul likes to bring to the table. I think he's going to be too fast, too sharp, too technical. I think he's light years better of a fighter than Julius Walker. I like Walker. He's a dog. He's got a unique style that's very him, that clinch, gritty, ugly type of style of fight to where that can be troubling for guys, but I don't think it's going to be troubling for Rahman. I think Rahman runs him over and gets him out of there in the very first round. The hardest part to pick is method of victory. Either way, I think he gets it done in the first round. Next up, we got Farman Hasanov versus Eric Nolan. Another one, right? Another one, right? This kind of reminds me of the first fight of the night. To where I just don't, I don't know. I'm just going to be straight up. I don't really know how you could be particularly confident in how you feel about this fight because both guys are very unproven in a sense. Now, I will say this. We've seen more from Eric Nolan, in my opinion, at a higher level, and a lot of that has to do with this short notice fight at UFC 319 against Baisengor Susurkayev, right? Mr. Seuss had the impressive DWCS performance. Hamzat was, fighting DDP for the belt. So they're like, let's put Baisengor at the press conference and on the same card. And so they call Eric Nolan on short notice as well as Susurkayev. They throw the fight together. So it's kind of a weird situation, having to quickly cut weight, all those kinds of things. Eric Nolan, what I got to see from him in that fight is this dude's got some very technical striking. He's a dog, right? And prior to the UFC, if you go back and watch a lot of his fights, very, very clean boxing, right? Got an excellent left hook that he can time very well around the guard. He's got a decent ground game. He's competent on the feet. What worries me for him in this fight, though, is Farman Hasanov, Farman. I did say that right. Okay, Farman. I was thinking of Farmer. I don't know what I was thinking, but Farman Hasanov. Unproven, right? Training over at ATT, which I think is a good place for him, right? They take these good grapplers and kind of give them, the cliff notes when it comes to striking to be able to be competent enough on the feet to get to where ultimately they feel very comfortable, right? Got brutally KO'd by a head kick almost 4 years ago, but hasn't been the most active guy. But what I like is he's been over in LFA, right? Got a win over Luke Roberts, stopped Lewis, via ground and pound. right? Was able to get him out of there. And then, look, I mean, got the stoppage over Fiziev. I mean, he's had some good performances, right? Don't get me wrong. But I just question some of the resistance that a lot of the guys were putting up to him in some of those fights. And I think that Hasanov seems like a very good grappler, to where I could very much see him, right? He's in Azerbaijan. He's going to be fired up in the UFC here. Big opportunity. Kind of like a Contender Series-like fight. That's the way I look at it. To where if Hasanov can be very explosive early, maybe can catch Nolan with a shot, blend the wrestling. I think he's going to have a grappling advantage, in particular with the wrestling in this fight. But I got some questions about the gas tank. I got some questions about what happens when there's a guy putting up resistance against him, to where I haven't seen a whole lot of that I was able to find on Hasanov. And what I've seen from Nolan is a guy that's dealt with some resistance. He's gotten clipped with some shots and been able to find a way to land some good shots on a guy that's as technical and skilled as a Bysangor Susurkayev, who to me is much cleaner than a Hasanov on the feet. So I could see this one going either way, but I am going to side with Eric Nolan in this fight, and I think that he is going to get a late TKO stoppage. I think that this fight is going to be looking kind of rough for Nolan early, right? Hasanov's getting to the takedowns, landing some shots on the feet, but as the fight starts to go, and if he doesn't get Nolan out of there, I could see him starting to slow down. Nolan starts to rip to the body, and eventually the body shots add up, and a left hook comes from around the guard and touches that chin of Hasanov and puts him down. I think that Farman's very explosive and maybe the better overall athlete. I think that's pretty fair to say. But, man, I think Eric Nolan's the more clean striker. And I think on the ground, Nolan's competent enough to be able to survive, figure some things out, and just not get butchered too early to kind of dog this one out. I think he should attack the body of Hasanov, take some of that explosiveness, and wind away from him early, drag this fight out, and find a way to get him out of there later as the fight plays out. I could see this going either way, but I'm going to side with the American here, Eric Nolan, going over to Azerbaijan and showing out. Give me Eric Nolan to bang up Hasanov as the fight plays out and get him up out of there. I'm going with nighttime. Next up, we got Abus Magomedov versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. This is an interesting fight, because if you had asked me a few years ago who wins this fight, I'd feel pretty decent about Abus winning the fight, right? Because one of the big issues that we had seen in Michal's game, especially early in his UFC run, was the fact that he could not stop a takedown. And if he got taken down, he was just kind of lost, right? To where we've seen Oleksiejczuk over the past, couple fights, man, he's been working with the fighting nerds. And I feel like working with Caio Borralho and those guys, I mean, they got high fight IQ. Right, and that's kind of what we've seen, right? He dropped Kevin Holland, then got submitted, which was kind of crazy, right? Went in there, just kind of moving forward. Shara Magomedov was able to pick him apart with the kicks, riding a 3-fight win streak. Put away Cedric Dumas, knocks out Jaromir Shart, goes to a decision with Marc-Andre Barriou. And I know that, we saw Michal slowing down and Barriou kind of battle back, and not the greatest of looks, because Barriou is, he's a solid fighter, but he's not like a high-level guy per se. But he doesn't really get tired. He's a dog. He can push through the pain, can push through the fatigue. And I feel like as a guy that can battle through adversity and fatigue a lot better than someone like Abus Magomedov. And he was able to push Michal Oleksiejczuk, right? Michal's a southpaw boxer, good hand speed, good power, right? Got some kicks as well, good forward pressure, keeps that head on a swivel, keeps it bobbing and weaving off the center line. And I think he's going to look to be very cautious but pressure early in this fight, because if you can take Abus Magomedov into the later portion of a fight, past that first round, the first round of Abus Magomedov looks like a top 10 middleweight for sure. Like maybe even a top 5 middleweight. Like he has explosive striking, very good kicks, good boxing combinations, a really high-level ground game early. And then as the fight starts to play out, his gas tank goes out the window. He starts to look very labored, and things just kind of fall apart, and you just see the body language really shift from Abus Magomedov. Maybe we see something different in this fight, right? Because to be fair, he kind of dogged it out a little bit against Alves, got it done on the scorecards, was able to submit Bruno Ferreira, which I thought was impressive, right? Got it done over Michel Pereira. Most recently getting stopped by Joe Pyfer, had a good first round, right? Was able to put Pyfer on his back, had some moments there. But it's the story of, if Magomedov has a very good first round with the grappling and pushing a crazy pace, if he doesn't get Michal out of there, I see him slowing down. I see Oleksiejczuk being patient, being smart, and I think a lot of those grappling improvements that we've seen from him, at least, since working with the fighting nerds, I'd like to think that he's gotten a little bit better in that area. But I will say this, Cedric Dumas, GM3 10 months ago, this isn't like the greatest 3-fight win streak, man. Like, I'm just saying it like it is. But the reality is, I think Michal has clean boxing. He's a guy that has, solid durability as well. I think he's the more technical boxer. I think he's patient in the first round, picks his shots, battles a little bit of adversity. And if he doesn't get finished by a submission or get KO'd by a boost early, I think that Michal can take over and start to outland Abus Magomedov and get it done by KO in the second round, or just outscore him and it goes to decision. But I think Abus's gas tank is going to fall off of a cliff after the first round, because I think Magomedov is going to have a lot of success in the first round. But I think Michal's going to survive. I think training with the fighting nerds with Kyle Bahalio, they're giving him the cliff notes for how to defend takedowns, how to stay safe on the ground. I don't think he'll take any crazy risks. And if he doesn't get submitted, they get back to the feet. You're going to see a labored Abus Magomedov. Michal will work to the body with the boxing. And I don't think that Abus, if he has to dig deep, do we think he can dig as deep as a guy like Marc-Andre Barriou? I'm not so sure. I think Abus is very, very skilled, and I think he's the more skilled overall fighter. But part of being a good fighter, man, is having a reliable gas tank. And I don't trust Abus's gas tank whatsoever, but I definitely think he's capable of getting this one done. I could see him submitting Michal, and if his gas tank holds up, I think Magomedov could clearly win the fight and get it done. But I don't trust his gas tank, and for those reasons, I'm out, and I'm going to pick Michal Oleksiejczuk to get it done via boxing, forward pressure, and having an answer for the takedown threat of Abus Magomedov. And to be fair, I mean, the guys that Abus is losing to, like Sean Strickland, Kyle Bahalio, these guys are very good. Very, very good. Some of the better middleweights in the world. And I don't know that Michal is one of those guys, but styles make fights. I think that this is a solid matchup for both guys, but one that Oleksiejczuk wins. Next up, we have Bruno Ferreira versus Ikram Aliskerov. This is an interesting fight. Very interesting fight, because I've been a little bit torn on this one, man. This is good matchmaking here by the UFC, because I think that Ikram Aliskerov is very, very gettable on the feet. And if he does not play it safe on the feet and he makes any false moves, any mistakes, any lapses in judgment, shoots a sloppy takedown, over parries like we see him do where he kind of swats at punches, I think that Bruno Ferreira will floor him in the very first round with a massive shot. But the reason that I am going to lean Ikram Aliskerov in this fight is because I think that Ikram is going to come in well prepared with a good game plan, right? I think he's been working with Team Khabib. At least he was. I thought I saw Khabib in his corner in the Jung Young Park fight, which I think was very valuable for him. And I kind of like the fact that while Aliskerov, I thought that he would win this fight a lot more convincingly, I like that he was pushed in this fight. I like that he had to battle through fatigue against a very veteran, crafty, savvy son of a gun in Jung Young Park, right? And the Iron Turtle's good, man. Like, he's a very technical fighter. He's got technical boxing, very, very good jiu-jitsu, very fundamentally sound fighter. Now, he doesn't present the danger, especially when it comes to the knockout power that a guy like Bruno brings to the table, but Jung Young Park's really good. And I think he's got a better pace, better output than a guy like Bruno Ferreira. And I think that was good. That was a good opportunity for Ikram Aliskerov to learn a little bit about himself, right? Was able to get Muniz out of there, a guy that I feel like is relatively washed, right? Got thrown in there against Robert Whittaker. He was supposed to be fighting someone else. They pulled him, threw him on the fight night. It was supposed to be Hamzat in there. And I knew that Ikram was going to get cooked. It was way too much too soon, right? And really the two losses in Ikram's career are to who? Knocked out by Whittaker and Hamzat Chimaev. Two absolute monsters at 185. And as much as I don't think Bruno is like a top 5 middleweight, I still think that he's one of the most dangerous middleweights on the entire roster. And we've seen that uppercuts. We saw Whittaker land one. We saw Hamzat land one. The straight shot down the middle and the uppercut is something that can definitely find the chin of Ikram and put him away. But I'm not out on Aliskerov yet, just because he had kind of a dicey back and forth with Jung Young Park, man. I look at that as like almost a worst case scenario, other than if he got knocked out, that'd be bad. But worst case scenario of you're tired, what you're trying to do isn't necessarily working, you're having to secure takedowns while you're fatigued. I think that was a good learning fight for Ikram Aliskerov. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not counting out Bruno Ferreira, especially early, right? And Ferreira came in great condition in the rematch against RoboCop. But we picked RoboCop to win and get his get back against Ferreira. Ferreira knocked him out the first time, right? Beating Marvin Vettori, Armin Petrosian by sub, Jackson McVeigh by sub. So these are decent wins, right? Did get subbed by Abus Magomedov. So I think Bruno Ferreira, very dangerous, very live to get this one done with the power that he has, but I don't know that he has the footwork and the setups that a guy like Robert Whittaker has, or when Hamzat kind of level changed a little bit and then threw the uppercut up the middle. And I think that Ferreira, right, he's got good takedown defense, has good jiu-jitsu of his own, but I feel like even though Ferreira's in good condition, I kind of wonder about the gas tank a little bit as the fight plays out, as I do about Ikram, right? Especially after what we saw from him in his last fight. But Ikram's got solid striking, not the best fundamental boxing defense where he over parries and can definitely be clipped, which is a real possibility here, right? Ferreira's got nasty jiu-jitsu as well, but I think Ikram is the better wrestler. I think he can put Ferreira on his back, control him, possibly even wear him down and maybe get a submission, but I'm going to side with Aliskerov to get this one done on the scorecards by decision. I'll say 29-28. I'm going to say that Aliskerov gets clipped early, and it's looking dicey. Bruno kind of empties it out looking, for a finish, doesn't get it, and then Aliskerov kind of takes over with the grappling and is able to get it done. But we've seen Ferreira's takedown defense can be pretty good, man. It can be pretty good. So I think the more dangerous fighter to me is Bruno, but Aliskerov does have some underrated power as well. Don't sleep on his power, right? Knocked out Phil Hawes, who I know is one of the more chinnier fighters that we've seen. Knocked out Alves, which was impressive. So Aliskerov's very well-rounded, power on the feet, good kicks as well, good fight IQ, can mix in the takedowns. I think he comes in with a good game plan and maybe even submits Ferreira as the fight plays out. But I'm worried for Ikram in this fight because Bruno Ferreira is very, very, very dangerous. But I will trust Ikram's fight IQ and wrestling in this fight to get the job done. And Bruno, I don't think he has the footwork to kind of skate around and avoid Aliskerov as the fight plays out. And I think Ikram also has the power to trouble him as well on the feet. Next up, we got Asu Almabayev versus Charles Johnson. Man, I want to pick Charles Johnson to win so bad. I can't even lie, I really do. And I'm kind of rooting for Charles Johnson in this fight. But the problem with Charles Johnson is it's very difficult to pick him, and I've actually had quite a bit of success picking Charles Johnson, right? I picked him against Lonnie Kavanaugh to get it done, right, which was kind of a little bit of lucky because Kavanaugh was looking good, and then he was able to put him away early. And how about Charles Johnson, man? This is a guy that could go out there and beat the best flyweight in the world and then lose to a flyweight that shouldn't even be in the UFC. Like, that's just kind of how Charles Johnson goes. But he was coming off of a win. It was a close one against Bruno Silva, a guy that's a little bit more on the chinnier side, right? But to be fair, Charles Johnson still looked good in that fight. We saw good takedown defense, right? Got clipped by a left hook on the top of the dome that was wobbled him and then put him away, right? So we've seen Charles Johnson look good. Wins over Sumiderzi, Josh Van, Lonnie Kavanaugh. Like, you see what I'm saying about Johnson? Especially when he's fighting a good striker, he just finds ways. He doesn't get tired, switches stances well, high output at moments, right? Good power, sharpshooter of a striker, good kicks, good straight boxing combos. But the problem with Charles Johnson is he's unreliable and he's hit or miss. Right, if he comes in there and looks like vintage Charles Johnson and stuffs these takedowns and can scramble back to his feet, I have no doubt that he could outstrike Almabayev and get this one done and maybe even find a late TKO stoppage. I think that's very, very possible. So I think Charles Johnson is more than live to get this fight, to win this fight. And if he wins, I think it would be some sort of late stoppage, right? Getting to the striking, Almabayev's working so hard with the grappling, not able to have success with it. And Johnson's just being that scrambly little rascal, getting to range and busting him up. But I feel like Asu Almabayev is a little bit more trustworthy than a guy like Charles Johnson. That's what it comes down to in terms of getting in the octagon. Like, you just don't know what you're going to get from Charles Johnson. Some nights he looks like a top 5 flyweight, and then other nights it's like he shouldn't even be ranked. And that's how I feel about Charles coming into this fight, because Asu Almabayev, to be fair, he was losing this fight. I had him down 2-0. Right, and then Shavkat was in the corner and probably said, hey, brother, you need to get to the back and get a standing submission like what I do, right? And that's exactly what Almabayev did. Took the back of Perez. We saw urgency, got him out of there, right? And he's been pretty impressive, right? He could chain the takedowns together really well. Got put away by Manel Kape, but Manel Kape is the most dangerous 125er ever. I've been saying that, right? Nasty power. Got through Jose Ochoa, which is a really good win because Ochoa is very dangerous on the feet and a good ground game as well. So I know Johnson's scrambly. I know he's got good striking. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. But I feel like that forward pressure, relentless pursuit of the takedown, Almabayev can use the hands to set up the takedowns. I just feel like he's just going to be relentless with it for 15 minutes. And I don't think that Almabayev is going to slow down. I think he can get to the back of Charles Johnson at moments, find ways to kind of just stick to him like glue. And then that's going to be enough to win via control time. So I'm going to say 29-28 Almabayev on the cards. I think he takes the first two. Johnson has some explosive moments in round 3 that gives him that round. But I think Almabayev is going to be a handful in rounds 1 and 2. I think his grappling can be a little bit troubling for Johnson, especially early in this fight. So I think Johnson could definitely outpoint him, find a KO shot late. He's got the better striking, but he does hold his hands low, and I can see Almabayev feinting level changes to open up the striking, then get right back to the wrestling. So I think Almabayev is a guy that has just better game planning coming into fights from what I've seen so far. So I'm going to go Almabayev here. I think that he could go out here, put on a smart performance, and get it done over a tall, rangy opponent in Charles Johnson, who like I said, I think is very live to not only beat Almabayev, but find a stoppage later on in the fight. But I'll trust Almabayev's wrestling in this fight here. Next, we got Nazim Sadykhov versus Mateusz Camilo. Ooh. Nazim Sadykhov should not lose to Mateusz Camilo. That's how I feel about this fight. I know that a lot of people kind of want to, talk up Mateusz Camilo like he's some sort of prospect to keep your eye on. And, man, I've been saying ever since this dude came into the UFC, I'm not impressed with Mateusz Camilo whatsoever, man. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I know that his jiu-jitsu's okay. I know he's 25, and to be fair, we could see a very different guy in the octagon against Nazim Sadykhov, making rapid improvements. All very true and all very fair. He gassed badly and didn't look good against Gabe Green, right? Had, I think, a submission at one point and lost it, gassed, right? And I know Gabe Green is a big guy. I think he was a welterweight, dropped down to 55, had a physicality advantage there, so I get it. Didn't look particularly good against Slava Claus, and I think that Slava's completely washed, right? And I picked Camilo to win this fight, and I was super unimpressed. I was so torn on if I was going to pick Slava Claus or Camilo in that fight, but I ultimately picked Camilo because of the grappling. And I will say, Camilo's got solid jiu-jitsu. He's got a good low kick. Outside of that, I think this guy is very, very hittable. I think his gas tank is very questionable. And I question some of the dog in him if the fight can get a little bit gritty and a little bit tough. And I think in this fight, I know you could say, well, Sadykhov, look at his fight with Slava, right? Look at how he battled adversity against Terrence McKinney and was able to get the job done, right? Had the competitive fight with Slava, right? But that was almost 3 years ago when I think Slava was much better than the Slava that fought Camilo, right? Was able to get it done against Nicholas Moto. That was a crazy fight, right? Moto put it on him. Sadykhov battled back and got it done. Right, got put away by Ferriera, but Ferriera looked really good in the fight. One of the best versions of Ziem that we had ever seen. And I know people are saying Ziem's a little bit fraudulent. I still think Ziem is really good. I just think Tom Nolan's that good. That's kind of the way I look at it. So for me, I think Sadykhov is the better striker. I think that maybe you could say Camilo early will have a good, a good grappling advantage and a good, game plan when it comes to the grappling. But Sadykhov's a southpaw, right? I know he kind of switches around on the feet a little bit. I think that if he's southpaw, that's going to kill that low kick from Camilo, right? Maybe Camilo looks to throw it to the body, bring it upstairs. I don't think he's going to land a head kick. I don't think his hands are better than Sadykhov. I think Nazim is going to slow cook Camilo in this fight and find a stoppage. I'm going to say in the second round. I think in the first round, it's a competitive back and forth. Camilo will be landing some shots because Camilo starts off really good. Very technical striking. Banging the leg kick from range, which, like I said, open stance battle, that's going to be negated, I think, a little bit here. I don't think he's just going to take down Sadykhov. Sadykhov's got a competent ground game, and I don't know that Camilo just has the power to really scare Nazim in this fight. I know Camilo, right, we saw his ground game on display before the UFC. Even though Nazim, I don't think, is an elite lightweight, he's a guy that's a BMF style of fighter. Tons of power in his hands, excellent boxing, rips to the body well. He's got very good kicks. He's got a nasty question mark kick as well. I think he can mix things up and find a way to melt Camilo and pull him into a dogfight. And even if Camilo has early success, if he doesn't get Sadykhov out of there, which I don't think he will, I think he'll fade, and then Nazim will put it on him, and then let the boxing combos flow and TKO Camilo up against the fence. Give me Nazim Sadykhov to get this one done. Nazim should not lose this fight, man. All right. Co-main event, we have Michel Pereira versus Shara Bullet Magomedov. A few years ago, I think that this would be a much more interesting fight because I think at 32, almost 33 years of age, and, man, I need to see that birth certificate because Michel Pereira, to me, looks like he's about 40, man. I think Michel Pereira is a ton of fun to watch, right? He's a tornado of chaos. He's very, very explosive, especially early in his fights, right? Especially when he was at welterweight, even at middleweight, not having to drain himself seems like it plays to his advantage. He's very bouncy, very explosive early, got a solid ground game to where I think if he takes the path of least resistance and is able to kind of test the grappling of Shara Magomedov and can put Shara on his back, I think it's possible that Michel could find some sort of submission and get Shara out of there. But I don't know that Michel's going to do it. And even if he does try to do it, I don't know if his takedowns are good enough to be able to keep Magomedov on the deck. And what we've seen from Michel in the past 5, right, was able to stop Ior Potieria and submit him. That was 2 years ago, right? Got stopped by Anthony Hernandez, but to be fair, had some moments in that fight, right? Abus Magomedov, right, back and forth. Gas tanks were a problem for both guys, right? Got put away by Kyle Dawkins in the first round. Not a good look. Right, this crazy back and forth with Zachary Reyes. Both guys looked awful in that fight. That was such a sloppy fight, and I thought it could have went either way. I think Shara Magomedov's just better. I think Shara Magomedov, outside of losing to MVP, who, I mean, it's just one of the trickiest puzzles in all of the UFC and one of the trickiest strikers to deal with of all time, right? That point-style karate, taekwondo-like approach that MVP has where he's surfing in and out of range, his timing, his movement, very, very difficult guy to deal with. But outside of that, I mean, Shara melting Antonio Trocoli, right? Outscoring Michal Oleksiejczuk, who's got solid boxing, right? The double spinning back fist KO against Armen Petrosyan was very impressive, right? Most recently, right, got his nose banged up by Marc-Andre Barriou, but Barriou's a dog and a guy that's not going to give up on himself and can push for a hard 15 minutes. And I think he has cleaner boxing, especially for a full 15 minutes than a guy like Michel Pereira. So I got to go Shara Magomedov here. I think that he could definitely TKO Michel, but I feel like Michel, getting that win over Zachary Reyes, I feel like maybe he got a little bit more confidence to him now coming into this fight. I think he puts up a fun fight. And Shara Magomedov has a lot of holes in the boxing, especially with the boxing defense. He kind of spams that little check hook. It's kind of, loopy and sloppy. His hands aren't very good. He's a very kick-heavy fighter, which I think is very unique, right? Doesn't really use his hands a whole lot at times, right? It's just kind of front kicks up the middle, tapping at the legs, kicks to the body, kicks upstairs. I think Shara Magomedov has a gas tank advantage. I think he has a speed advantage. He's got a kicking advantage, a range advantage with the way he operates. And, I think Michel Pereira is explosive early. Maybe he could clip Shara with a shot and get him out of there, take him down, implement the grappling. I just don't think any of that happens. I think Shara keeps this thing on the feet and is just able to pick and poke at Michel Pereira, frustrate him, beat him up to the body with the kicks, chip away at the legs, take away the base of Michel Pereira, and just outscore him and win 30-27 on the scorecards. And it wouldn't surprise me because we've seen Michel's gas tank is horrible. Wouldn't surprise me if Shara is able to TKO him in round 2 or 3 and get a highlight and get him out of there. But the reason I say decision is Shara's not like the greatest finisher either, right? He can be very flashy and very creative, but I don't know, man. Like, it depends on what Michel shows up. If he's motivated, Michel can actually be pretty game. But if he shows up, looks lousy, the gas tank fades very early, Shara will get him out of there. But I think Michel comes in motivated, man. I think especially off that last performance, even though it wasn't impressive, it's still a win to kind of get his confidence back. I've seen him training with Strickland a little bit. Strickland giving him those Shara Magomedov looks. So I'll say Shara gets this one done, and the UFC just keeps handing Shara Magomedov these guys that are just going to go in there and kickbox with him. Good matchup for Shara. I think he gets it done pretty easily. Last but not least, we have arrived at our main event of the evening. We have Rafael Fiziev versus Manuel Torres. Another fight that I went back and forth on. Because if I put the blindfold on in terms of, I still got to be able to see, right, to see what their styles are. So maybe blindfold isn't the right thing to say. But if I take away the names and I don't know anything about the fighters and you just show me them moving around and striking and hitting the bag and all, I'm going to tell you that probably the more technically smooth all-around fighter is Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev is some of the most crisp, clean Muay Thai that we have ever seen in MMA. And that's his background, right? A Muay Thai style of striker, 33 years of age, 5'8", 71.5-inch reach. And Rafael Fiziev is a ton of fun to watch. One of my favorite strikers in the lightweight division and really in the UFC period, right? And he's got really good boxing, especially on the inside. Good hands, can switch stances, attack the legs, right? Rips those nasty kicks to the body, and he's got a solid ground game as well in his takedown defense. He's got brick wall takedown defense. So Fiziev is a complete mixed martial artist. He's not just one of these Thai guys that comes over and is very stationary. He moves a lot. Great movement on the side of Rafael Fiziev. But the problem with Fiziev over the past few years, he's been in there with great competition, but they are still losses, right? Got banged up a little bit by Justin Gaethje, who, I mean, just put on a great performance against Ilia Topuria. No harm, no foul. One of the best lightweights of all time. The injury against Mateusz Gamrot, right? Lost to Gaethje in the rematch, but it was short notice. Was able to get it done against Ignacio Bahamondes. We picked him in this fight. You know, got knocked out by Rufi. I've been fading Fiziev in a lot of these fights, man. Against Gaethje both times, right? I faded him against Rufi. I did pick him to beat Bahamondes. I figured that he could kind of get to the inside, kind of play a more, technical game than Bahamondes. And, styles make fights. And I know you could say, well, look what Bahamondes did to Manuel Torres. He was able to put him away and knock him out. So MMA math tells us, well, Fiziev beat Ignacio, so he should just beat Torres. I don't think it works like that. If I had a guarantee that Manuel Torres was going to whiff and was going to get tired and this fight was going to make it to the mid to later rounds, my prediction is Fiziev gets it done if that happens. But the problem is I don't know if it's going to get there. Now, I will say this. I don't think that Torres is a Justin Gaethje. I don't think he's as technical. He doesn't have the dirty boxing skills or the leg kicks like a Gaethje to get to the inside. Like Gaethje, those how he gets the collar tie, throws the uppercuts in close, right? Gaethje's super technical, throws shots from weird angles, can make it dirty, right? Torres is not a Mauricio Rufi, who's one of the flashiest, most devastating strikers in the UFC right now, who can just kind of skirt around on the outside, be low output, tag you with the jab, and eventually walk you into a right hand. That's not how I see Torres. He's not a Gaethje. He's not a Rufi who's just going to be, kind of walking you into these shots per se and setting you up. But what he is going to do is he is going to go out there and just be very, very confident in his power, in his explosiveness, in his all-around mixed martial arts skill set, and he's going to look to cause a head-on collision. And I'm worried that Fiziev is not going to be able to just get out of this car wreck, man. I think that Manuel Torres is one of the most dangerous lightweights on the entire roster, right? The way he stepped in against Nicholas Mota and smoked him with an elbow was just absolutely terrifying, right? And then goes out there and stops Chris Duncan, which is a very good win. Right, against Bahamondes at Noche, right? I picked Torres in all of these fights, and this one I should have saw coming because this was when Torres was looping these punches, man, trying to close the distance against a tall, rangy Bahamondes who just sniped him with a beautiful straight shot down the middle because Bahamondes is very, very good technical kickboxing. And he throws those good sharpshooter straight combos down the middle to where that was giving Torres some problems. But in this fight, Torres is going to be taller. He's going to have a reach advantage, so he doesn't have to worry about getting to the inside of the range of Rafael Fiziev. And most recently, smoking Drew Dober, that was violent. Right? And then going out there and beating Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson's a very good grappler, and you wouldn't know it because Torres just put him away easily. Manuel Torres, in a way, kind of reminds me of Michael Morales, but at lightweight. Now, I do think Torres is more technical than a guy like Morales, but you get my point. You can't make mistakes in front of Torres. He's a great athlete. He's very explosive. He's got elbows, knees, can switch stances, and he's super explosive. And if he hits you clean, you're done. You're done. You're done. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. So I am going to pick Manuel Torres by a second round knockout. And maybe he does go out there and just run over Fiziev in round one because Torres' fights is basically you either put him away or he puts you away, and basically all of his wins are first-round finishes, right, for the most part. So I do think it's possible that he does get the first-round finish, but the reason that I'm leaning second round is Torres is in a 5-round fight here for, I believe, the first time in the UFC, so he's got 25 minutes here. So I feel like he's going to come out a little bit cautious, not wanting to empty the tank in case he just can't find Fiziev early. He's going to want to be a little bit cautious, work his way into range, have a little bit of respect for the game of Fiziev because Fiziev is very good, man. And we've seen Fiziev put on some great performances and put guys away, right? He's been in there with RDA, Moicano, he's been in there with good fighters. So this is a big step up in my opinion for Torres, right? We haven't seen Torres get a win per se over a high-level striker in my opinion, right? To be fair, I know Dober's, a good striker, but lost to Bahamondes, who's more of a high-level striker, right? And Gaethje and Rufi, I think that they're better than a guy like Torres. So I'm just saying it like that, but I think Torres is too dangerous. That's the reality. But I worry about the gas tank of Torres. I worry about the fact that sometimes him being a little bit too chaotic can sometimes get him in trouble. He can be countered. Fiziev doesn't have the craziest power at lightweight, but he's got good hand speed. He's got nasty kicks. I could see him attacking the lead leg of Torres, taking away some of the mobility, ripping shots to the body to take away some of the wind from Torres to slow him down, especially since it's a 25-minute fight. Fiziev's got the experience. He's been in 5-rounders before. And he's also been in there with some of the most devastating strikers in the weight class. So, I don't know, man. I've been back and forth with this fight. But for now, I am going to say that Manuel Torres gets it done. I got to trust his power and his ability. I mean, he's so explosive, so dangerous. And he also has a good ground game. To where if he hurts Fiziev, he can follow him to the ground. He's got nasty submission skills. To where if he does rock Fiziev badly, and Fiziev is kind of on wobbly legs and he hits the deck, like Torres can hop on him and sub him. Torres is a nasty submission game. And I know Fiziev has a competent ground game, but when you get hurt, you know, your takedown defense is no longer really going to be good, right? Because you're rocked, you're wobbled, right? And I know Fiziev has solid takedowns of his own, but I don't know that he's going to look to... Maybe that would be a decent game plan, right? Especially to take away some of the explosiveness of Torres, but then you risk getting submitted because I think Torres is a nasty sub game all around. Very, very good on the ground. So I think Fiziev's going to have to be very, very careful. He's going to have to be patient early, dance around, use a ton of footwork, pick at Torres from range. But the problem is Fiziev is one of these guys that kind of thrives in the pocket. And Torres, you know, outside of throwing that big looping punch against Bahamondes, I feel like we've seen recently he's been a lot tighter with the combinations. He's been a lot tighter with the boxing, a lot tighter with the technique. And I think that that's going to pay off in this fight. And I think he's catching Fiziev at a good time. And I think Fiziev is still very high level. And I can see this fight going either way. But Fiziev, man, 1 out of your last 5. And I know he's been in there against, you know, very, very good opposition, but they're still L's. I wonder where his confidence is going to be at. I know he's in Azerbaijan. This is a home game for him, per se. The crowd, I'm sure, is going to be behind him. He's going to be all fired up. And, you know, Fiziev is very, very game. You know, he's a high-level striker, but Torres is on the up, man. He's on the up. He's got a ton of confidence. He's powerful. And he can throw so many different things at you that just have devastating consequences. But if Torres doesn't get him out of there within the first couple, like, I wonder about the gas tank, seeing him in a 25-minute fight here, to where I could definitely see Fiziev taking over, getting a late TKO, maybe even just outscoring, you know, Torres and getting it done on the cards. But Torres, to me, dangerous submission skills, could dictate where the fight goes. I think on the feet, Fiziev, technically more skilled, but Torres, to me, has cleaned some things up on the feet, and I think that devastating explosive power, I just think he's going to create a car crash, man. I'd like to see Fiziev get this one done. I'm kind of pulling for Fiziev, but I like Torres as well, man, and I've been picking Torres in every fight. And Bahamondes was a tricky matchup for him with the straight, you know, long-rangey shots down the pipe, to where Fiziev doesn't really throw straight boxing combos, right? He throws a lot of, like, hooks to the body, uppercuts, right, kicks to the body. He's very, very, very fun to watch, right? Whippy kicks, excellent style. You know, Fiziev's a ton of fun, man. I just think that Torres is catching him at a good time, and I think it's a tough matchup in a way for both guys, but Manuel Torres is ferocious, and Fiziev, to me, doesn't have the best defense. He just kind of raises his guard, answers the phone. His head is kind of on the center line at times, and I could just see a right hand or an elbow, step-in elbow from Torres, you know, crushing you know, the face of Fiziev and putting him down, to where Torres follows up with ground and pound, or, you know, is able to hop on a submission and get a club and sub. But I'm going to say maybe a more cautious first round for Torres, being in a 25-minute fight here. Lands some big shots, stings Fiziev early, some good back and forth. But then in round 2, we see Manuel, you know, feel comfortable, feel confident, and then mow Fiziev down with a big shot and get him out of there. But who knows? Maybe Torres goes out there and says, I don't care, it's a 25-minute fight. I'm going to do what I do, and gets another first-round finish. Wouldn't be surprised. But I feel like he'll be a little bit more patient, being that it's a 25-minute fight. And I think eventually he knocks out Rafael Fiziev and gets it done. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you could also hype the video, I would greatly appreciate it as well. And subscribe to the channel. Help your boy out. I would greatly appreciate it all. See you next time.